The human pilot, named Rian, sat in the cockpit of his ship as alarms screamed around him. Red lights flashed, and warning signs covered the control screen. The ship had been struck by an unseen energy wave near the border of an unknown system. Rian tried to keep control, but the engines were dying fast. His training told him to eject, but the deep pull of gravity from the blue planet below left him no time. The ship's hull burned as it entered the atmosphere. Pieces broke away and scattered like falling stars. Rian gripped the handles tight and prayed the landing would not be his last. The cockpit rattled so hard he could not breathe. Finally, with one last push, the ship slammed into the surface and slid across glowing sand before crashing into a ridge of crystal rocks. When silence came, Rian sat still, heart pounding. Smoke filled the air, and heat burned against his skin. He coughed hard, forced open the canopy, and dragged himself out of the wreck. The sky above shimmered with purple clouds, and lightning danced between them like veins of energy. The planet looked strange and alive. The air was thick but breathable. He fell to his knees and took a deep breath of alien air. Pain shot through his leg. His flight suit was torn, and his left arm bled where metal had cut through. He tore a strip from his sleeve and wrapped the wound. The ship was broken beyond repair. The distress beacon was weak, and communication with his fleet was gone. He was alone on a world no human had ever seen. Rian looked around and saw tall crystal towers rising from the horizon. They looked like a city made of light. The towers reflected the strange sun, sending blue and silver rays across the desert. He decided to move toward them, hoping for help, or at least shelter. Every step hurt, but he forced himself to keep walking. Hours passed before he reached the edge of the city. The towers were not made of metal or stone. They pulsed with a soft rhythm like breathing. The streets were clean and smooth, glowing faintly under his boots. Then he saw them, tall figures with pale skin that shimmered like pearl. Their eyes glowed faint blue, and their clothes looked like flowing sheets of energy. They moved silently and gracefully, but when they saw him, they stopped. A group of guards approached, holding staffs that emitted light instead of blades. They surrounded him, speaking in a language that sounded like music. Rian raised his hands, trying to show peace, but the guards did not lower their weapons. One of them tapped a small device on his wrist, and suddenly, Rian heard words forming in his mind, a translation. "Human," the voice said inside his thoughts. "You have entered the land of Varela. Who are you, and why have you come?" Rian took a deep breath. "I am Rian, pilot from the human exploration fleet. My ship crashed. I mean no harm." The guards looked at one another. The leader said something that sounded like a command. They took his weapon and motioned for him to follow. Rian could hardly walk, but they guided him through the shining streets. The air grew cooler as they entered a tall crystal palace that reached high into the clouds inside. The light was gentle and warm. The walls were alive, glowing in rhythm with soft humming. At the end of a long hall stood a figure dressed in white and blue robes. She was young, with silver hair that flowed like water, and her eyes carried the calm of a deep ocean. She was Princess Alira, heir to the throne of Varela. The guards knelt before her. Rian followed their example, bowing his head. He heard her voice soft, steady, and full of curiosity. A human. "I never thought I would see one in my lifetime." Rian looked up. "Your Highness, I am sorry for the intrusion. My ship crashed by accident. I seek only to survive." Alira walked closer. The guards seemed uneasy, but she raised her hand, and they stepped back. "You are injured. Bring him to the healers," she ordered. The guards hesitated again, and one said, "My lady, the Queen forbids contact with offworlders. It is dangerous." Alira turned her eyes on him. "Would you let a living being die before you without aid? I will answer to my mother if I must. Now take him." "Act." The guard bowed and obeyed. Rian was guided to a healing chamber where golden light covered his wounds. The pain faded, replaced by a warm tingling. Within hours, the cuts were gone, and his leg could move again. The healers looked at him in awe, whispering words he could not understand. He realized they had never treated a human before. Later that day, Alira came to see him. She brought food that looked like glowing fruit and water that shimmered like glass. Rian tasted it carefully. It was sweet and refreshing. Alira smiled. Our world is strange to you, I imagine. It's beautiful, Rian said. I thought I would die in that crash. I owe you my life. She shook her head gently. You owe me nothing. I only did what was right. They spoke for a long time. Alira asked about Earth, about human cities, about why his people traveled so far into space. Rian told her about curiosity, about courage, and about the dream to know what lies beyond the stars. She listened closely, her eyes bright with interest. He noticed that she carried both wisdom and sadness. When he asked why, she looked away. Our world once reached the stars too, she said. But we closed ourselves off. Long ago, the Varellans faced a great disaster caused by those who sought power. Since then, my mother forbade travel beyond our skies. We live in peace, but in fear as well. Rian nodded. Fear keeps people alive, but it also keeps them from growing. Alira seemed moved by his words. Perhaps that is what we have forgotten. As they spoke, unseen eyes watched them through hidden devices. The Queen's Council had already sent word to the palace ruler, Queen Nalan, Alira's mother. The Queen was known for her strict rule and distrust of outsiders. When she heard of the humans' arrival, her calm mask cracked. A human here, she said coldly. My daughter breaks the law for a stranger. She sent a message to the guards. Keep watch on the human. Learn his purpose. If he poses danger, end it. That night, Rian stood by a window overlooking the glowing city. He thought of his broken ship and the stars beyond. He missed the sound of human voices. But there was something in this world that drew him in, not just survival, but connection. Alira's kindness had sparked a sense of hope inside him. He did not know if he could ever return home, but he wanted to repay her in some way. The next morning, Alira brought him to the outer terrace of the palace. From there he could see the endless plains and the rivers of light that flowed through the land. Our world is alive, she said. Everything you see connects to the core beneath the surface. It powers our city and our minds. Some say it listens to us. Ren listened with respect. It feels peaceful, yet strong, Alira nodded. But something has changed. The core has been restless. We have felt tremors, seen storms form in the skies. My mother says it is natural, but I feel a warning in it. Perhaps your coming here is not by chance. Rian frowned. What kind of storms? Ones that tear through energy and light. We call them soul storms. They have not come for many cycles. Rian thought of the energy wave that had struck his ship before crashing. Could it be connected? He told Alira about it. Her eyes widened. Then the storms have returned, she whispered. If they spread, our world could fall into darkness. As they spoke, alarms began to ring across the city. The sky darkened, and lightning crossed the clouds. Guards ran through the halls shouting warnings. Alira looked up in fear. The core trembles again. Rian followed her to the inner chamber, where glowing crystals formed a great sphere. Energy waves pulsed inside it. The palace shook. The queen entered with her council, her robe flowing like a river of gold. She looked at Rian with hard eyes. So, this is the human, she said. My daughter brings strangers into our sacred home. Rian bowed low. Your Majesty, I mean no harm. My ship crashed. I only wish to survive. Queen Nalan studied him. Survival often hides ambition. Your kind reaches far, even into worlds not their own. You may have brought danger with you. Lyra stepped forward. Mother, he helped me study the energy waves. They may explain the storm that now threatens us. The queen's face softened slightly, but not with trust. You speak with the heart, my child, but not with wisdom. We will study the matter, but the human stays under guard until we know the truth. Rian accepted it without protest. He understood fear, and he knew he had no choice but to earn their trust. The queen turned away, and the council followed her. Alira looked back at him and whispered, Do not lose hope. I will find a way. That night, Rian sat in a quiet room under watch. He replayed the events in his mind, the crash, the rescue, the storm, and the queen's warning. Something deep told him that his arrival and the world's disturbance were not separate. He felt trapped, but his will remained strong. He had survived death once, and he would not surrender now. From her chamber, Alira gazed at the stars through the crystal ceiling. The storms glowed faintly on the horizon. She whispered to the wind, "If he truly came by fate, may he be the one who changes it." Far below, the planet's core pulsed again. Its light flickered like a heartbeat. Somewhere in that rhythm, two destinies had begun to intertwine, one of human courage and one of alien hope. Neither Rian nor Alira yet knew that their meeting would reshape not only Varela, but the future of both their worlds. The next morning, the first light of Varela's twin suns touched the palace towers. The city glowed like a sea of crystal fire. Inside the guest chamber, Rian sat on a soft bed, thinking about what had happened. He had survived a crash, been healed by aliens, and now lived under the watch of guards who did not trust him. The air smelled like flowers mixed with metal, a strange but calming scent. A knock sounded on the door. The guard stepped aside, and Princess Alira entered, her robes shining with threads of light. Rian stood at once. She smiled softly. "You do not need to bow, Rian. You are not my servant." Rian nodded. "It feels right to show respect." She looked around to make sure they were alone, then said quietly, "My mother has ordered that you remain here until the council decides your fate. But I cannot let that happen. You saw the storm yesterday? It is not a natural event. I believe your arrival is connected to something ancient. You must see the Vault of Echoes." Rian frowned slightly. "What is that?" Alira's eyes filled with both fear and pride. "It is a sacred place deep under the palace. It holds the oldest memory of our people. Only the royal bloodline may enter, but I believe it is time someone else did too. If the storm that brought you here is what I think it is, then the vault might show us the truth." She motioned for him to follow. The guards hesitated when they saw her walking with the human, but she lifted her hand, and they stepped aside. Together they moved through long corridors that glowed with soft light. Every wall seemed alive, whispering faint voices like ancient songs. Rian listened in awe. They stopped before a huge gate made of dark blue crystal. Strange symbols covered its surface, glowing faintly as Alira pressed her palm against it. The gate opened slowly, and a cool breeze came from within. They stepped inside a chamber that looked like the heart of the planet. Rings of energy circled a central core of light. Alira turned to him. "This is the Vault of Echoes. Every Viralan leader comes here to seek guidance from the past. The core stores our history and records of other civilizations we once met before we closed ourselves away." Rian walked closer to the glowing sphere. The air around it hummed, like the sound of 1,000 voices speaking at once. "Can it be accessed?" he asked. "With the blood of the royal line," she replied. She touched a small crystal on the floor, and the energy reacted instantly. Images filled the air scenes of space battles, golden ships, and stars exploding. Rian could hardly breathe as he saw what looked like a record of an ancient war. Alira spoke softly. "This was before my time. The Virulans once reached beyond our skies. They found many worlds and met other races. But greed and fear broke the unity. The queen of that era sealed our world to protect it. Since then, we have forgotten who we once were." Rian looked at the image of a massive energy wave spreading across the galaxy. "That looks like the storm that hit my ship." Alira turned sharply. "You are right. This record shows a storm of cosmic energy. It destroyed fleets and burned systems. My ancestors called it the Endless Wave. They believed it was gone, but perhaps it has returned." Rian's heart pounded. "If that is true, then it may reach Earth too. We must find out where it came from." Before she could answer, the energy around them flickered. A new image appeared, a human-like figure wearing armor, standing beside a Viralan queen. Both held their hands over a glowing map. Rian stared in shock. "That is a human," Alira's voice trembled. "It cannot be. No record mentions humans before your arrival." The vault shifted again, showing the same human standing before a vast storm. His body glowed with light as if he was absorbing its energy. Then the vision faded. The vault's light dimmed and the chamber went quiet. Alira looked shaken. The vault never lies. This means humans and virulins may have met long ago. Maybe your kind played a part in sealing the storm. Rian stood silent. The idea felt impossible, but also strangely right. Then I must help you stop it again. Before they could leave, heavy footsteps echoed from the hallway. The gate opened and Queen Naylan entered with 2 guards. Her face was unreadable. So, my daughter breaks the sacred law, she said. The vault is forbidden to outsiders. Alira stepped forward. Mother, we found something important. The storm is real. The humans' arrival is not by chance. The vault showed us the truth. The queen raised her hand. Enough. You endanger our traditions for a stranger. Guards take him back to his chamber. Rian did not resist. 2 guards held his arms, but Alira moved between them. Mother, please listen. He can help us. Naylan's voice was calm but firm. Help is not what I see. I see a man who brings chaos into our world. You let emotion rule your mind, my daughter. That is weakness. Alira's eyes filled with tears of anger. If compassion is weakness, then perhaps we need more of it.
Ow.
The queen turned away. You speak like a child. The council will meet tonight to decide his fate. Rian was taken back to his room under guard. Hours passed. He sat quietly, staring out the window at the swirling clouds above the city. He could still feel the hum of the vault in his mind. The image of the ancient human and the Virulon queen would not leave his thoughts. When the door opened again, Alira slipped inside, wearing a dark cloak. We do not have much time, she whispered. My mother plans to send you away from the city at dawn. She fears what the people will think if you stay. Rian rose. Then we must act before that. She nodded. I have friends in the Science Council who believe the storm can be tracked. If we combine your ship's data with our technology, we may find its source. Come with me. They moved quietly through side corridors. The palace guards were changing shifts, and no one saw them leave. Alira led him into a round chamber filled with floating devices. The scientists there looked surprised, but said nothing when they saw the princess. A tall virulin named Orin stepped forward. My lady, is this the human you spoke of? Yes. He holds data that could save our world, Alira said. Rian handed Orin a small chip he had recovered from his crashed ship. The scientist inserted it into a glowing panel. The chamber lights dimmed as a map of the galaxy appeared in the air. Energy lines connected several systems, forming a pattern that pulsed like a heartbeat. Orin studied it. This matches the readings from the vault. The storm follows a spiral path. It feeds on energy fields like ours. It will reach Varela again within 3 rotations. Alira turned to Rian. Then we must prepare a defense. We cannot wait for the Queen's approval, Rian nodded. We can build shields to redirect the energy or move the city's core underground. But I will need parts from my ship, Orin frowned. The wreck is outside the city walls, guarded by sentinels. No one may leave without the Queen's order.
Ali did da 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 da.
Then we go tonight. They left through a hidden tunnel that led out of the palace. The air outside was cooler, and the twin moons cast silver light across the desert. In the distance, Rian saw the black smoke rising from his crashed ship as they approached. Strange shapes moved near the wreck. Machines unlike anything Rian had seen. They floated above the sand, scanning the debris with red light. Alira whispered, "Those are scavenger drones. They collect any fallen energy source." Rian crouched low. "If they take the ship's reactor, we lose everything." He ran forward, drawing attention. The drones turned toward him, firing small bolts of energy. Rian rolled behind a piece of metal and aimed his wrist beacon at the nearest one. He adjusted the signal frequency and sent a burst of static. The drone fell lifeless to the ground. Alira used her own device to disable the others. Together they reached the ship. Rian pulled open a panel and took out a glowing cube. This is the reactor core. With this, we can power the shield. Suddenly, a voice echoed from the darkness. "Stop where you are." It was the Queen's captain, surrounded by soldiers. Their weapons glowed. Alira stood tall. "Do not harm him." "I ordered this mission," the captain hesitated. "The Queen's orders were clear. The human is to remain under guard," Rian spoke firmly. "If you stop us now, your world will fall. The storm is real, and it is coming soon." Before the captain could answer, the ground shook violently. Lightning flashed across the sky. The air turned red as a wave of energy swept toward them from the horizon. The soldiers froze in fear. Rian grabbed Alira's hand. "Run." They sprinted back toward the city as the wave chased them. The sand rose like a living ocean. Behind them, the wreck of Rian's ship was swallowed in light. The storm passed over the desert, crashing against the city shields with thunderous sound. Inside the palace, alarms blared. The Queen stood before the control crystal, watching the barrier tremble. When she saw her daughter and the human running through the gate, her eyes widened. Guards rushed to help them as the storm struck the outer wall. The shield held, but only barely. Energy sparks rained down over the city. When the storm faded, silence filled the air. Rian stood breathless, holding the reactor cube tightly. The Queen looked at him for a long moment. "You brought the storm to our gates," she said quietly. Rian met her gaze. "No, I brought the warning." For the first time, the Queen did not answer. She looked toward the dark horizon where the storm had gone, and then at her daughter who stood beside the human. The world she thought was safe had just changed. That night, whispers spread through the palace. Some called Rian a hero. Others called him a curse. The council demanded answers. The Queen sat alone in her chamber, staring into the glowing map. The storm had passed, but the sky of Varela was still heavy with dark clouds. The twin suns were hidden behind red light, and the air smelled like burning metal. The people of the city stood in silence, looking up at the damaged shields above their heads. Parts of the crystal towers had cracked, and faint sparks ran through the streets. Inside the great hall, Queen Naylin sat on her throne, surrounded by her council. The guards stood ready, while Alira and Rian faced them. The Queen's voice was calm, but sharp. "You left the palace against my order. You brought the storm closer. Do you deny it?" Rian kept his head high. "The storm was coming whether I stayed or not. We went to recover my ship's core so we could protect your city. If we had not gone, you would have no power left for the shields." Alira stepped forward. "He speaks the truth. The storm was already near. Without his help, the outer ring would have fallen." The council whispered among themselves. Some nodded, others frowned. The Queen's eyes moved from her daughter to the human. "You speak boldly for one who knows so little of our world," she said. "But bravery without wisdom brings ruin." Rian took a deep breath. "Maybe, but sometimes courage is the only thing that keeps a world alive." For a long moment no one spoke. Then the Queen stood. "Very well. You will both work together under my command. If your knowledge can defend Varela, prove it. But if you fail, your life will be mine to decide." "I accept that." Lyra looked relieved. The Queen left the hall, her long robe flowing like silver fire. The council broke apart, leaving only the guards behind. Rian turned to Alira and said quietly, "We must start at once. The next storm could be worse." They went to the science chambers, where Orin and other Virulon engineers were studying the reactor cube. Orin greeted them with a tired smile. "We have good news. The core from your ship can power the city's shields, but it will not last long. The energy from the storm is too strong." Rian studied the display. "We can strengthen the shields if we combine human energy converters with your crystal network. My ship's fragments still have enough circuits for that." Alira nodded. "Then we use both worlds' technology together. It may be the first time our races truly work as one." They spent the next hours building the hybrid system. Virelan engineers worked beside Rian, learning his designs while sharing their own secrets. The room glowed with blue and orange light as machines hummed around them. Despite their fear, many Virulons began to respect the human who worked harder than anyone else. At sunset, a message came from the outer stations. The sky patrols had seen strange lights approaching from beyond the clouds. The energy pattern matched the storm, but also something else shapes moving within it. Rian read the report and felt a chill. These are not just energy waves. There are ships inside the storm. Lyra looked at him in shock. Ships? From where? I do not know, he said. But they are using the storm's energy to travel. It hides them. Queen Naylan entered the chamber at that moment. You mean there are invaders within the storm? Rian nodded. Yes, they might be drawn by the power of your planet's core. If they reach the surface, they will destroy everything. The queen's face turned cold. Then we must fight. She gave orders to activate every defense around the city. The skies filled with virulent ship-sleek craft made of crystalline light. Their engines hummed in harmony, creating glowing trails across the air. Rian stood beside Alira in the command center, studying the radar. He pointed at the screen. Their formation is irregular. They move like scavengers, not an army. But there are hundreds of them. Alira turned to her mother. We should let Rian lead the air defense. He understands human battle tactics. The queen hesitated. A human commanding my fleet? Rian said firmly. I do not seek command, Your Majesty. I only offer what I know. I have fought storms like this before. Your pilots can win if they use human formation patterns. The queen studied him for a moment, then gave a short nod. Very well. You will guide them. But remember, Varela fights with honor. Rian smiled slightly. Inhumans fight to survive. Together, that might be enough. The battle began as night fell. The storm clouds split open, and from within came dozens of glowing ships shaped like claws of light. They fired energy beams that tore through the sky. Varellan pilots rose to meet them, their own weapons shining like blue fire. The clash filled the heavens with color and thunder. Rian stood at the central console, giving commands through the translation link. Hold your fire until they come close. Form 2 rings, one high, one low. Make them chase you toward the shield line. Alira relayed his words to the pilots. The alien ships followed, falling right into the trap. Rian shouted, now turn and strike from below. The Virulon fighters dove together, their beams cutting through the enemy lines. Several enemy ships exploded in bright flashes. Cheers filled the communication channel, but the storm was growing. Energy waves hit the shields again and again. The city trembled. Alira turned to Rian. We cannot hold forever. The shield is losing power. Rian ran to the energy controls. If we redirect power from the palace core to the outer towers, we can double the defense time. Rian hesitated. That could damage the vault. Rian looked at Alira. If we lose the city, there will be no vault left to protect. Lyra agreed. Do it. They worked quickly. Power surged through the network, and the shields flared brighter. Outside, the enemy ships tried to break through, but now the defense held firm. Rian's plan was working. Suddenly a call came through. One of the virulent ships was hit and spinning out of control. The pilot's voice was faint. This is Unit 7. I am losing control. My engines are gone. Lyra listened carefully. That is my ship. I trained that pilot myself. Without warning, she ran from the control room toward the flight deck. Rian called after her, but she did not stop. He followed her as fast as he could. When he reached the deck, Alira was already inside a fighter, preparing to launch. You cannot go out there, Rian shouted. It is too dangerous. She looked at him from the cockpit. I am a princess, but I am also a pilot. My people fight. I cannot watch while they die. Rian saw determination in her eyes. He knew nothing would stop her. He climbed into the fighter beside hers. Then you will not go alone. Both ships took off together, rising into the burning sky. Lightning cracked around them. Rian followed Alira through the battle zone. They saw Unit 7 spinning through the storm, its engines trailing smoke. Alira reached it and locked a tractor beam onto the damaged craft. Hold steady, she said over the link. Rian flew above her, covering her from incoming fire. Enemy ships turned toward them. He fired back, hitting one and sending it into the storm. But another struck his right wing, and his ship began to shake. Rian, your engine, Alira called. I can handle it, said, fighting the controls. Just get your pilot to safety. He pulled his ship upward and dived straight into the path of the attacking ships. His gunfire cut through their formation. The enemy turned to chase him, giving Alira the time she needed to pull the damaged ship back. Toward the city, Rian's fighter was burning, alarms screaming in his ears. He could see the city below glowing through the clouds. He thought of Earth, of the promise he made to survive, and of Alira's face when she smiled. He pushed the engine to its limit. One last energy blast hit his ship, and everything went white. The fighter spun out of control and crashed near the palace gardens. Inside the city, Alira landed safely with the rescued pilot. The shields still held, but the battle above was raging. When she learned that Rian's ship had fallen, her heart stopped. She ran through the halls toward the crash site. Guards tried to stop her, but she kept running. The garden was filled with smoke and fire. Broken crystal lay everywhere. She found Rian's fighter half buried in the ground. The cockpit was crushed, but she forced it open with her bare hands. Inside, she saw him still breathing, his face burned and his arm bleeding. She cried out for help. He opened his eyes weakly. Did we win? Alira smiled through tears. We are still standing. That means yes. Guards arrived and carried him to the healing chambers. The battle outside slowly faded as the last of the enemy ships retreated back into the storm. The skies cleared, leaving trails of light across the horizon. Queen Nalan watched from the palace balcony. Her city was damaged, but it still stood. She looked toward the healing chambers where her daughter had taken the human and whispered softly, "Perhaps I was wrong about him." In the healing room, Rian lay under a soft golden light as the healers worked. Alira stayed beside him, refusing to leave. When he woke later, she was still there. He smiled faintly. "You should be resting, princess. I could say the same to you," she replied. "You nearly died out there. I told you I do not die easily." She laughed softly. "You humans are strange. You risk everything without knowing if you will survive. That is what makes us human," he said. "We fight because life is worth it." Alira looked at him with admiration. "You fought for my people. You saved more lives than you will ever know. Even my mother cannot ignore that." Rian turned his head toward the window where the first light of dawn touched the sky. "Then maybe there is hope for all of us." Outside, the people of Varela began to rebuild. The warships returned, carrying wounded and victorious pilots. The city sang a song of renewal, a melody that reached every corner of the crystal towers. The city of Varela lay quiet in the early morning, though the signs of battle were still clear. Cracks ran along the crystal towers, and the streets were littered with debris. Smoke rose from damaged energy generators, and small fires glimmered like scattered stars across the ground. The people moved carefully, repairing what they could and helping those who were injured. Inside the healing chambers, Rian rested on a smooth bed of glowing material. His body ached. His left arm was wrapped in glowing bandages, and his chest still burned from the impact of the crash. Yet his mind was alert. He knew the danger had not passed. The storm had retreated, but it had revealed a new threat. Enemies using the storm's energy to move through space. He could not ignore the possibility of another attack. Princess Alira sat beside him. Her hand brushed his arm gently, a silent gesture of care and relief. "You should not have risked your life so recklessly," she said softly. Rian smiled faintly. "I told you before, humans fight because life is worth it. I would do the same for you or for your people." Lyra's eyes shone with admiration. "And yet my mother may never forgive you. She believes outsiders bring nothing but danger." Rian sat up slightly. "Then we must show her otherwise. Help her see what we already know." Alira nodded. "I will try. But the queen is strong in her beliefs. She will not yield easily." At that moment, the chamber doors opened. The royal guard stepped aside as Queen Nalan entered, her robes flowing like silver water. Her face was calm, yet her eyes held the weight of authority. Rian bowed instinctively. Alira placed a hand on his shoulder to remind him that he was not alone. The queen approached the bed and studied him carefully. "You survived the crash, led our pilots, and faced the storm," she said quietly. and yet you were only human. One mistake and all could have been lost. Rian met her gaze. I accept that risk. But I acted because your people were in danger. I do not seek reward, only survival for all. The queen paused, her expression unreadable. Then she sat in a glowing chair beside him. I have watched you since your arrival. You do not lie, you do not exaggerate, and you do not flinch from danger. That is rare even among virulins. Perhaps it is why my daughter believes in you. Lyra's eyes softened, and she whispered, You see him too, mother. He is not a threat. Aline's lips pressed into a thin line. I see courage. I see loyalty. I see something different. I see the potential for greatness. Rian tilted his head slightly. Potential for greatness. The queen nodded. Yes, the human spirit is unlike ours. It thrives in adversity, it learns quickly, and it dares where others hesitate. I have underestimated your kind. Perhaps it is time to change that. Lyra smiled gently. Then you will allow him to stay? The queen considered this, her eyes moving to the horizon where the storm had passed. He may stay, but only under careful watch. If he proves himself again, perhaps he may earn more than trust. Rian bowed deeply. Thank you, Your Majesty. I will not fail. The queen rose slowly. Do not mistake my leniency for approval. You are under my protection, but also my scrutiny. Every action you take will be measured. Alira stepped forward and held her mother's hand. He has already saved the city once. Surely that counts for something. The queen looked at her daughter with a mixture of pride and caution. Yes, it counts. But one act does not secure the future. We must prepare for what is coming next. The storm has revealed enemies who use its power. They will return, and we must be ready. Rian listened carefully. Then let me help you prepare. With your knowledge and my experience, we can strengthen the defenses and protect the people. The queen studied him. Very well. You will work alongside Alira and the council. But remember, human methods differ from ours. Do not assume all will follow your advice. I understand, Rian said. I will adapt. For the next few days, Rian and Alira worked closely with the Virulon engineers and strategists. They studied the storm's energy patterns, analyzed the enemy's formation, and designed new defenses. Rian taught them human tactics, formation flying, energy distribution, and rapid response maneuvers. Alira shared her knowledge of Virulon technology, which amplified the effect of his strategies. Together, they created a hybrid system that combined human and Virulon energy. The shields became stronger, able to withstand twice the force of the storm. The Virulon pilots learned to coordinate like never before. Morale among the citizens began to rise. One evening, while Rian and Alira reviewed the plans in a quiet chamber, Alira spoke softly. I am proud of what we have achieved together. The city is safer because of you. Rian shook his head. It is because of all of us. Without your guidance, I would not have known how to use your technology. Without your courage, I could not have led the pilots. Alira smiled. You are too humble, Rian. You risked your life for my people. That is not something that can be measured by skill alone. Rian looked out the window at the glowing towers. I did it because I could not do otherwise. When life is at stake, standing aside is not an option. Alira reached out and touched his hand. I wish we had more time before the next storm. I want to learn more about your world, and I want you to see all of Virella. Rian met her gaze. Then we will have time. We will face the future together, whatever comes. Meanwhile, the queen observed their progress from a distance. She had sent scouts beyond the city to track any movement of the enemy. Reports arrived showing small fleets hiding in the remnants of the storm, preparing to strike again. The queen called Rian and Alira to her chamber. You have done well in preparing the city, she said. But these enemies are patient. They will not attack until they believe we are weakened. That is why I offer you a choice, Rian. Rian listened intently. A choice? Yes, the queen said. You can remain here permanently, with full honor and protection. You will have a place in our world among our people. Or you can leave and continue with your own kind, returning to the stars. Your decision will affect more than yourself. Rian thought of Earth, of the fleet he had come from, and of the people waiting for his return. Yet he also felt a strong bond with Alira, with Varela, and with the people he had come to protect. "This is not an easy choice," he said. The queen nodded. "Nothing truly worth doing is easy. You are human. That is your strength and your challenge. You will need to choose based on what is right, not what is safe." Alira took Rian's hand. "Whatever you decide, I will support you. But know that your presence here has already changed my world. You have saved lives, inspired hope, and reminded us that courage can come from any place." Rian felt the weight of responsibility. He had survived death, led battles, and earned the respect of an entire alien world. Yet the greatest decision was still before him. Could he stay and become part of this world, or return to his own people and warn them of the storms and the enemies waiting in the stars? That night, he walked through the city alone, past the repaired towers and glowing streets. He saw children playing despite the remnants of battle, and adults repairing the shattered structures with renewed determination. Varela had survived because people believed in hope. He had helped make that hope real. He reached the palace gardens, where the first light of dawn touched the flowers. Alira joined him quietly. They watched the twin suns rise, casting long shadows across the glowing landscape. "You are thinking of leaving?" she said softly. Rian nodded. "I cannot ignore my people. The threat we faced here will not stop with this planet. Others may fall. I have a duty to warn them, to prepare them." Alira looked at him with understanding and sadness. "Then I will let you go. But know that Varela will never forget what you have done. You have changed our world forever." Rian took her hand gently. "And you have changed me. I have learned courage, patience, and hope from your people. I will carry that with me always." They stood together in silence, watching the city awaken. The twin suns reflected off the crystal towers, casting a brilliant light across the streets. The storm had passed, but the world had been forever altered. In the distance, the queen watched from her balcony. Her mind was made up. She would not interfere with Rian's decision, but she knew the human had earned a place in her heart. One day, perhaps he would return, and when he did, she would be ready to welcome him in a way no one else could. That night, the city slept under calm skies. But the stars above reminded them all that danger still lingered beyond their world. Rian had survived the storm, earned the trust of a princess, and faced the scrutiny of a queen. The next challenge would test not only his courage, but the strength of the bond he had formed with Varela, and in the quiet of the night, Alira whispered a promise to the stars. "Return to us, Rian, whatever happens. I will wait." The human who had defied death was not yet finished. His journey and the fate of two worlds hung in the balance. Rian stood on the balcony of the palace, looking out over the city of Varela. The streets glowed softly under the twin moons, repaired towers gleamed in crystal light, and the people moved with purpose. The storm had passed, leaving behind both destruction and hope. He could feel the pulse of the city's energy, a rhythm that was almost alive. Alira appeared beside him quietly. She had dressed in her white and blue robes, her silver hair flowing in the wind. Her eyes were bright with emotion, but her voice was calm. "The queen has made her decision. You may go, Rian, if you wish. The fleet waits for you. Your world needs you." Rian looked at her, his heart heavy. He had faced impossible odds, survived death, and earned the trust of an alien princess and a queen. Yet leaving now felt like leaving a part of himself behind. "I cannot stay," he said quietly. "My people are out there. They may face the same storms that came here. I have to warn them, prepare them." Lyra's hand brushed against his. "I understand. But know this, Rian. You will always have a place here. You have changed Varela forever, and you have changed me." He smiled faintly, feeling both pride and sorrow. "And you have changed me. I have learned courage, hope, and the strength to fight for something greater than myself." They turned to face the palace, where Queen Nalon waited. The queen's presence was commanding, yet there was a softness in her gaze reserved only for her daughter and the human who had survived against all odds. "You have proven yourself," she said to Rian. "You have risked life. You have led, and you have shown wisdom beyond your kind. If you were Virulent, I would grant you a place at my side." Rian bowed his head. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I will not forget this world or the lessons I have learned here." The Queen's eyes lingered on him, measuring his resolve. "Remember, courage alone does not ensure survival. Wisdom, patience, and loyalty are also required. You have shown all three." She turned to Alira. "Take care of him in my absence. He may leave, but your bond will remain." Alira smiled. "I will." Preparations for Rian's departure were underway. His small human craft had been repaired and enhanced with virulent technology, making it faster and more resilient than before. Engineers worked tirelessly, combining circuits and energy cores to ensure it could withstand the storms that awaited in space. Rian oversaw the final adjustments, explaining each modification to ensure the fleet back on Earth would benefit from the designs. The next morning, the people of Varela gathered to witness his departure. Crystal banners fluttered in the wind. The streets were filled with citizens who had watched him rise from a stranger to a hero. Children waved glowing ribbons, and pilots saluted as he walked toward his ship. Alira joined him at the landing pad. "You are ready," she said softly. Rian nodded. "Because of you and because of everyone here, I will carry this knowledge back to my world." She took his hand. "I will wait for the day you return. If the stars bring you back to Varela, we will face the future together." Rian felt a surge of emotion. "I promise I will return." Queen Naylan approached, her expression steady. "Go with caution, human. The galaxy is wide and full of dangers. But know this, you have earned our respect, our trust, and our hope." He bowed deeply. "Thank you, Your Majesty." The engines of his ship roared to life, glowing with the combined energy of human and virulent technology. The crowd fell silent as the craft lifted off. Alira and Rian waved to each other as the ship rose higher. Cutting through the crystal clouds and leaving the city behind, once in space, Rian felt the familiar pull of gravity and momentum in a way only humans could recognize. He activated the shields and engines, navigating through the remnants of the storm that had retreated from Varela. His mind raced with calculations, analyzing energy patterns and mapping a path that would allow him to warn Earth's fleet of the approaching danger. Alira's voice came through the comlink.com, but filled with warmth. "You are ready for this, Rian. Remember everything we taught you, and trust your instincts." "I will," he replied, "and I will never forget Varela." As the ship moved beyond the planet's orbit, Rian observed the twin suns shrinking into the distance. He thought of the people who had risked everything to save their city, Alira's courage, and of the Queen's careful wisdom. Each lesson would guide him in the challenges ahead. Days passed in space as Rian navigated through systems, avoiding remnants of the storm and scanning for enemy movements. The hybrid technology of his ship allowed him to detect energy anomalies that humans had never encountered. Each discovery reminded him of the bond between two worlds and the power of collaboration. Finally, the fleet's command center appeared on the horizon. He transmitted a message immediately. "This is Rian returning from Varela. Prepare for approaching energy storms and possible enemy ships utilizing the storm. I have coordinates and strategies to protect your fleet." Commanders rushed to review the data. Reports confirmed the storm was moving through the sector. It's feeding on natural energy fields and cloaking the presence of small fleets. The fleet immediately began preparations based on Rian's instructions. Within hours, first wave of storms reached the fleet. But thanks to Rian's guidance, the shields held strong. Energy distribution patterns, warning systems, and tactical maneuvers ensured that no ships were lost. The fleet's pilots were amazed at the combination of human and virulent technology and praised the human who had saved them without setting foot on their ships. Rian watched from the cockpit, calculating adjustments and relaying commands. He thought of Varela, of Alira's words, and of the Queen's expectations. Every action he took was influenced by the courage he had learned there. Days later, the storm subsided, retreating beyond the fleet's sensors. The ships regrouped, and celebrations began. Rian was commended for his leadership and innovation. But in his mind, the greatest victory was the survival of two worlds and the bond he had formed with Varela. He sent a final message to Princess Alira. The fleet is safe. The storms have been contained. Varela's lessons guided every step. Thank you, her reply came quickly. I am proud of you. You have honored both our worlds. Come back to us when you can. I will wait, Rian smiled, feeling the weight of responsibility and the joy of accomplishment. He knew that one day he would return to Varela, not just as a human ally, but as someone who had earned the trust and friendship of an entire civilization back on Varela. Queen Naylan watched the twin suns rise once again. The city was repaired, stronger than before, and the people were more united. She turned to her daughter. You chose well. He is more than a visitor. He is part of our history now, Alira nodded, a gentle smile on her face. And one day he will return. I can feel it. The queen studied her daughter's face. Then let him go. The galaxy is wide, but Varela's bond with him will endure. The courage of one human has proven that the smallest spark can change worlds. As Rian's ship disappeared into the distance, the city of Varela glowed brighter than ever. Crystal towers reflected hope, streets pulsed with life, and the people sang songs of survival and unity. The storm had tested them, but it had also shown them the power of courage, cooperation, and trust between two very different worlds. Rian looked back at the stars one final time, before jumping into faster-than-light travel. He carried with him the promise of return, the wisdom of Varela, and the determination to protect his people. And in the quiet of space, he knew that the human who had defied death for an alien princess would one day face new adventures. Guided by the lessons of courage, loyalty, and hope that had reshaped two worlds forever, the journey was far from over. But for now, Rian had completed the first chapter of a legacy that would span the stars. He had earned the trust of a queen, the friendship of a princess, and the respect of an entire civilization. And he would never forget the world that had taught him that even a single human could change the fate of two worlds.